Hey everybody, welcome back to Living Traditions Homestead. Well, it's evening and we're about to head out to the garden to do what is hopefully going to be our first big harvest of the season.
We've both come out at separate times, yesterday and the day before, and we have known that there's going to be an upcoming harvest, a good upcoming harvest, but we wanted to make sure that you guys could come along. And gosh, you guys, it's been so hot here.
It was 97 degrees today and about 90% humidity. It was terrible all day long.
And really, it's been like this for over a week.
Yeah.
But the good news is, starting tomorrow, a cool front is coming in. So next week will be in the low 80s, and we are totally ready for a break.
Right. You might actually hear some thunder in the background. We do have a storm. It's still pretty far off in the distance, I think. I don't think it's going to hurt our plans here. But hopefully that storm will bring in some nice, cool weather because we are ready for it.
But in order for me to start getting some preserving done, we need to get some harvesting done. So let's see what we can pull out of the garden this evening.
Well, tonight we're going to start with the most important thing in the entire garden, and that is tomatoes. We've got two 50-foot rows of tomatoes planted again this year. The first row is all of our slicing tomatoes. These are Jet Stars and Jet Setters. And then the second row is all of our paste tomatoes. This year we're doing the Opolka and the Salvatore Select. And then at the end of each row we have some cherry tomatoes so that I have something to eat while I'm out here working. So let's start down the first row here of the Jet Stars and Jet Setters. It looks like there's going to be a lot to pick. Well, there's definitely some cherry tomatoes to pick. And you guys know me. I never come out to the garden during tomato season without a salt shaker in my pocket. Gotta have a little salt on your tomato. I'll just leave that right in the basket. All right, looks like there's also some Jet Stars to pick. Now these aren't really big ones yet, but there are some huge ones on there. Usually these first ones that ripen aren't quite as big as some of the ones that come, you know, in another week or two, but hey, these are still good sized tomatoes. They're absolutely beautiful. If you've been watching us for any amount of time, you know that the Jet Stars are our absolute favorite tomato. We grow these every single year. I don't think we'll ever have a garden without Jet Star tomatoes. There's some that are very close, but not quite ready. All right, here's another cluster that are starting to ripen. I think there's only one of these that's ready. These other ones will still need a couple days, but look at that. That is a gorgeous tomato. Now, the thing with tomatoes is you can pick them however you like them. I personally like tomatoes that are still a little bit more orange instead of really overripe, but some people like them to get really red. The nice thing also, though, is as long as they're even a little bit ripe, you can bring them in the house and they will ripen in the house. I don't think it's quite as good as letting them ripe on the vines, but if you're having a problem with rodents and those type of things eating them as they ripen, get them off of there. As soon as they start to ripen a little bit, take them in the house and let them ripen in the house. Hopefully there's less rodents in the house than there are out in the garden. All right, let's take this one. Let's keep moving down the row and see what else we can find. This is what you wait for all summer when you love tomatoes as much as I do. You know, we start our tomato seeds back in March inside, and it seems like it takes forever to get from March to July when we can start picking, but it's like being a kid in a candy store once they start ripening. Well, we've made it to the end of the row. That is a beautiful basket of slicing tomatoes. Now at this end of the row we have another type of cherry tomato. These are the ones that we grow down at the other end. These are the Gardener's Sweetheart, they're called. They kind of grow in a cluster and they're kind of heart-shaped, which is why they're called Gardener's Sweetheart. And then down on this end is a variety called Juliet. A couple of years ago, I asked you guys for advice about different types of cherry tomatoes to try because we were having such a hard time with cherry tomatoes cracking because of the weird rain that we get here. And you guys, these are two varieties that you guys recommended. We've been growing them now. This is the second year, and you guys were right. These varieties do not crack even in the heat and the rain. So these are perfect. If you're having that problem, try these out. Again, these are Gardener's Sweetheart and Juliet.
Now, the paste tomatoes are different than a standard slicing tomato because they have a lot less water in them. And they're called paste tomatoes or sauce tomatoes because that's generally what is used to make tomato paste and like spaghetti sauce, pasta sauce, and just plain old tomato sauce, because it just takes a lot less time to boil out all of the water because there's just not as much water as in a slicing tomato. You can still make all those things from slicing tomatoes, it just takes longer for that water to evaporate. Now you can see that, well, these are opalkas, and so they're shaped a little bit different than the standard tomato shape that you're used to. There's one over here that's ripening. Take that off. And it's pretty normal for these opalkas to be red on the bottom and still a little bit green on the top, but these will ripen up really nicely in the house. These are also good if you like to make salsa that's not super juicy salsa and can it. These are really good for that as well. Now there might be a couple more on all these plants that are ready, but I think it's probably going to be a couple more weeks before we have a lot of these ready so I can make some sauce. But let's go check them out down here. Here's a nice one down here. Now these are the Salvatierra Select. Let me show them to you here. So they're still not round like a slicing tomato, and they're a little bit different size or shape, you know, than the opalkas. Overall, for me, they ripen more evenly, unlike the opalkas that stay a little bit green on the top. But the Salvatierra Select and the opalka are really good varieties to grow for paste tomatoes and sauce tomatoes because their size gets really nice. I mean, you can see, I want to show you this one over here that's green. See, this is a really nice sized paste tomato. And what I have found is that most of the other varieties of paste tomatoes that I have tried have been small. And so it's like a lot of extra work to get the amount of sauce that you need. But these two varieties, Opalka and Salvatierra Select, they generally get a really nice size. So you get like a lot for your work, I guess. Both of them skin easily in the hot boiling water and then plunge them into cold water. They just skin like a dream. There's not a lot of effort needed to get them ready to go into the sauce pot.
Well, I would say that that is a great first harvest of tomatoes. All right, we're going to move on to our cucumbers. Now, our cucumber vines are looking a little sad these days. They're already pretty much on their way out for the season. But we've already picked a lot of cucumbers, you guys. But they're still putting on new ones, even though they are starting to succumb to some of the diseases that inevitably happen almost every year. There's a lot of cucumbers to pick today.
These are like grocery store cucumbers.
I know, they're amazing. Wow, that is a pretty darn good harvest of cucumbers. This may be the last big harvest that we get of cucumbers for the year. We'll just have to see. Now, you'll notice that we do have a few in here that have started to turn yellow. Some of these, if they're just a tad bit yellow, I actually like to take those in the house and make cucumber limeade with, which is something that I love to have in the summer. It's such a good drink to have on a warm day. But the ones that are really yellow, they're not good for that. They're typically pretty bitter. But this is exactly what you want for saving seeds. So if you get a good yellow cucumber like this means that the seeds inside are nice and mature and you can save those seeds. And one cucumber this size, this is probably 10 years worth of seeds for the average garden. So if you get even just one or two of these really yellow ones like this, save the seeds out of them and you'll have seeds for your next 10 gardens.
Well, you guys, the thunder's coming, the rain is coming, it's getting pretty dark.
Yeah.
And pretty soon, you know, we're either gonna get rained on or it's gonna get so dark that you're not gonna see us very well on the video. So what we're gonna do is in the morning, if this clears out, well, basically we need to harvest tomorrow anyway. So when this moves out, tomorrow morning, whatever, we'll come out and finish our harvest, bring you guys along, because there is a lot to pick out here.
Yeah, we still have a lot of peppers, and gosh, we just need to look through the garden. There's some big surprises at the back of the garden. I think not ready to pick, but I'm excited to show you guys.
But even though we can't pick everything, like not everything's ready, but you guys are gonna be so shocked at just like what all is producing.
So we'll see you in the morning.
Well, those storms last night ended up being something. Man, we had 3 different waves of the storms go through. One right after we stopped filming, and then one at about midnight, and one at about 3:30 in the morning. Lots of lightning, lots of thunder, but there was no damage to the garden, no damage to trees or anything, so we're happy about that. So we're back in the garden to do some more harvesting, and we're in the pepper row here. Overall, my bell peppers are kind of behind, but there are some peppers that do need to come off. They aren't humongous, but this one, for instance, I'm gonna pick because I think if I pick this one, it will encourage the plant to grow some more and will encourage more blossoms and more peppers to be put on. So this guy isn't very big, but I'll take him. Let's see what else we have. I'm gonna take all 4 of these from this plant to give the energy of the plant to be put into new flowers and new peppers up here. Maybe it'll grow a little bigger too. Now that we've gotten to the jalapeno plants, these plants are a better size. Now, even though I kind of get discouraged at this time, where I feel a little bit discouraged about the size of the plants, I need to realize, and I'm really just talking to myself, that the pepper season is a really long season. So even though it's the beginning of August, end of July, we can continue growing peppers until the middle or late to October, depending on when our first frost is. So there's a lot of time yet to be growing peppers, so I need to not allow myself to get discouraged. But these jalapeno plants are doing really well. They've got lots of peppers on them. Now, jalapenos are jalapenos that aren't hot. Not a peno. Nada means none or no. They're not hot jalapenos. And there are some of them here that are just a fantastic size. And I'm gonna harvest some of these to take into the house and start preserving. Look at the size of these. These are nice. They're kind of weird shaped on the bottom, these particular ones. Gosh, look at how nice these are. These are a really nice size that you could actually stuff these and have them put it the jalapeno poppers. I think that would be really good, and these are perfect if you like jalapeno poppers, but you don't really like the spice of them. These would be perfect. Now these 5 plants here are the Ajvarski peppers. I love them because they are a wonderful red roasting pepper. Now I could pick these. You can see there's a bunch of peppers on here. They're a wonderful size, and they can be eaten as, you know, green, sweet green peppers. These aren't spicy, but I really like to let them stay on the plant and turn red because they're so sweet as a sweet red pepper. And I like to roast them and use them for roasted red pepper soup. I like to add them into hummus, different kinds of dips on a sandwich, on a burger. They're so good. And that's why I think I have 5 or 6 of these plants planted here. So even though I really could harvest a bunch of these, and they're just loaded, I'm gonna leave them on here until they turn bright red. The next peppers that we have here, and these are ready to harvest. These are the Craig's Grande jalapeno peppers. Look at how many gorgeous jalapenos are in there. Got several that are large enough to harvest and take them inside and start preserving them. Now the tricky thing is when you're growing jalapenos that are spicy and jalapenos that are not spicy, they pretty much look exactly the same. So number 1, you need to remember which one you planted where. And number 2, when you're harvesting them, you need to keep them in separate containers. So I have a separate, I actually brought out a colander to keep them separate. because it is not a nice surprise for somebody who doesn't like spicy things to bite into a jalapeno when they think it's not going to be spicy, and vice versa. I think it's not a very nice surprise when you like the spice and you're let down by no spice being there on a jalapeno. So we're going to keep these separate. But some of these are just gorgeous, ready to come off of here. Now these 3 pepper plants are like firecracker plants. They're Tabasco pepper plants. And you can see that they're starting to put on their peppers, lots of them. They're these little yellow peppers. They grow straight up into the air. They put on tons and tons of peppers. And they're gonna take their time putting on peppers, and all of a sudden, late in the summer, early in the fall, they all turn red. And this is like Christmas trees with red lights on them. They're gorgeous. I'm gonna be harvesting them red and turning them into Tabasco sauce for Kevin. I do hope to bring you a video about that later this summer. It's amazing.
All right, now we're in what's probably my second favorite thing in the entire garden next to the tomatoes, and that is okra. I absolutely love okra. I like it raw, I like it steamed, I like it fried. Who doesn't like it fried? And, you know, just about any way you can make okra, I think it's awesome. Except, I'll be honest with you guys, I'm not a big fan of pickled okra. I know a lot of people love it, it's just not for me, but I do love it in just about every other way. So these okra plants are doing really well. There's none ready to pick just yet. There's lots of little bitty ones and lots of new blossoms. So it's only going to be a matter of days before we get around to picking some of these. Now these plants we do trim up. We've already trimmed them once, but they're due for another trimming right now. Basically, as they grow taller, we'll trim most of the bottom branches off so that you can see in them a lot better to pick your okra. So before we move on, let me show you guys what an okra blossom looks like, and then a little bitty okra right behind it. You can see here's the blossom. They're actually really pretty flowers. And then right down here is a little baby okra. And these things will grow so fast, I bet in 3 or 4 days that will be ready to pick. So we'll be bringing you some updates on that, and we'll show you what we can do with okra throughout the growing season. All right, now we're on to our 2 rows of beans. This row here is a new type of bean that we're trying this year. I told you guys a while back that we were able to get a bunch of these seeds from Baker Creek several years ago, but we never grew them. So this year we decided to try them. When we bought them, we were told you could eat them either as a fresh green bean or let them go dry and use them as a dry bean. I'll be honest with you guys, we're not big fans of them fresh as a green bean. They're just not as good of a taste as a regular green bean. But they are starting to dry, and soon we're going to be able to harvest a bunch of these. I was actually going to harvest a lot of them today, but after that big rain we got last night, we need to kind of let them dry back out. I don't want to pile a bunch of them in a basket, take them in the house, and have them start to get moldy in the house. But let me show you. Now these are called Delico Ochio, which I've been told by several of you guys is basically like a cowpea. They're long, and they've got a bunch of black beans inside. So let me open one up, and I can show you guys. They're not a very big bean inside, but there's a lot of them in every pod. So we'll definitely be able to harvest these. We'll be able to keep a bunch of them for seed for future years, but we'll also be able to just use a lot of them for, you know, anything that we would use a normal black bean for. I think they're going to be great in soups and other things over the winter. We're excited to have these. Even though we didn't be able to use them as a green bean, we're still excited, and we'll probably grow them again in the future because they did really well. All right, now down here is our contender green beans. Contenders are the type of green beans that we grow every single year. We've already done 3 really big harvests off these, and we've canned a lot of green beans already. These contender green beans seem to put on one really big crop at the beginning, which gives you several, decent pickings. Then they kind of go where there's a time with no beans again, and then you can see, like right now, they're just starting to flower again. So they're going to put on a whole nother crop of beans here coming up. And in no time, we'll have another 2 or 3 good-sized harvests to pick off of.
Well, I'm going to talk with you about the tomatillos next, but apparently I've acquired a friend. This butterfly or moth or whatever has just been sitting on my shoulder for, you know, several minutes. Apparently I taste good. I'm not sure what's going on, but anyway, it's with me. The tomatillos are doing really well. They're starting to put on their fruit. You can see these like paper lantern type things, and inside of there is a fruit growing in there. It looks like a tomato, but they never get red. And once it is big enough, once it's ripe, it will be so big that it starts bursting out of the bottom of the paper, and it'll start getting a little bit lighter in color. We have green tomatillos and purple tomatillos that we're growing right next to each other here. That's supposed to help with pollination and make them produce more. So we have not gotten harvests of the tomatillos yet. We're waiting patiently, but I'm really excited to be producing more salsa verde. We love that over the winter. Make salsa verde tacos and have it with our chips. But they're coming. They're just not quite ready yet. Actually, now that I'm on the other side of the tomatillo plants, there are just a few of them that are ready to be harvested. You can see back here, see how they're bursting out of their husk there. You can go ahead and harvest that. Has a little bug hole, but it'll be fine. Here's another one. Another bug hole, but that'll be fine. But that's exciting to get a couple tomatillos that are ready. So these Canada crookneck squash, these are winter squash, they're going crazy. They've grown all up the trellis. Now they're growing all on the ground, on the woven weed fabric, and there are squash everywhere. But I want to show you the color difference between, so that they kind of go through. Now back in here, you can see that this is a pretty new squash. It's still pretty much green. But over here, back here, this one is starting to turn a little more tan or orangish yellow. This still isn't ripe yet because you can see that the stem is green. When these are ready to pick, that stem will turn brown, and that's when you'll know it's time to harvest them. That's the best indicator that I know to tell when they're ready to harvest.
All right, we're in the very back of the garden. This is our watermelon patch. Now, I know I say this about every part of the garden we get to. This is one of my favorite parts of the garden. I guess I just like to eat is the problem. But watermelons, there's nothing better in the summer than an ice cold watermelon. So this year, our watermelons are doing great. You might not be able to see a lot of them because they kind of hide within the plants. But from where I'm standing right here, I just counted 7 of them that I can see just from right here. And I know there's a ton down there as well. But this is, I think, the biggest one that we have so far right here on the ground. It's not ready to pick yet, but it will be before too long. You guys can see that it is growing really well. This is one of the strawberry watermelons. These typically get in the 20-25 pound range. We've had them get up to almost 30 pounds, but they are just a fantastic heirloom watermelon. They do have a lot of seeds, but if you can get past that, which that doesn't bother me, they have probably the best flavor of any watermelon I've ever had. Well, I think that is a pretty great harvest for one of our first big harvests of the season.
Now the tomatoes, we've already eaten some, and we already gave some to a neighbor. So in the last like 12 hours, less than 24 hours, we've actually
probably gone through a dozen of them already.
Exactly.
And we definitely have our cucumber seeds for next year and probably the next several years, honestly, just out of this one overripe cucumber. So it's always good to let one go a little too ripe.
The next step is for us to start preserving some of this harvest. This is what I wait for all year long, and I'm so excited to start digging in. You guys, if you're enjoying videos like this, make sure that you hit the subscribe button below so that you're notified of when we put new videos out. And really the best way that you can help us here on the homestead is just to share our videos on all your social media. Until next time, guys, thank you so much for stopping by our homestead. Take care and God bless.
God bless.